This is an overview of the Canon EF 70-300mm diffractive optics telephoto lens. And here's the lens up close. The first thing to point out is that it's a diffractive optics lens. Now, diffractive optics is a technology used by Canon to produce slightly smaller lenses, and you can always tell a diffractive optics lens made by Canon by its signature green ring around the barrel of the lens. Now, this lens is pretty heavy. It comes in at 720 grams, which is the heaviest of all the 70-300mm lenses that I've looked at. Now, one of the main reasons for this is that predominantly the lens body is made out of metal. This is a difference between the other lenses that I've looked at, as they're predominantly made out of plastic. This makes the lens feel very sturdy, very well built, and it feels like it's a quality lens. Now, pointing out some of the features on this lens, you've got your standard readings here. You've got your autofocus, manual focus switch here. You have your button to turn image stabilization on and off here, as well as the ability to switch between modes 1 and 2 here. And finally, you've got your zoom lock button, which is found here. The aperture range of this lens ranges between F4.5-5.6 all the way up to F32 to F38. So here we have the lens attached to a Canon 20D digital camera. The main point of having a diffractive optics lens is that it's going to be smaller than the standard alternatives, and that's definitely the case here. It's going to fit into your kit bag a lot easier, and you're also going to be less noticeable when you're out and about taking photographs with this lens because of its smaller size. When zoomed in fully to 300mm, the barrel of the lens extends this far, and focusing is typically quick and quiet. That's because it's got the Canon USM ring motor, which is Canon's technology, which they put into some of their lenses to make quick and quiet focusing. Now, with image stabilization, you've got two modes. When you have image stabilization on, you will hear a low amount of rumbling coming from the lens. When the lens is set to mode 1, that will control camera shake in the horizontal and vertical axes. When you have it set to mode 2, that's going to control camera shake in the vertical axis only, and you're typically going to have it set to mode 2 if you're taking a picture which requires the panning of the camera. So as this is a heavy lens, you are going to detect lens creep when you're trying to take pictures either up in the air or down towards the ground, as I'll demonstrate. You're seeing the barrel of the lens extending all by itself. So you can compensate for that by using the zoom lock button, but that is only going to lock the zoom at 70mm. You can't put the zoom lock on at 300mm, for example. So in terms of image quality, here are a few examples of photos taken with the 70-300 diffractive optics lens. Here's a shot at 70mm, and here's the picture zoomed in to at 300mm. I can't detect any chromatic aberration with this lens. Photos are typically sharp and clear, although I do notice the pictures are slightly softer in focus when zoomed in at 300mm. This can be compensated by if you use a higher aperture, say f8, but it's going to mean that you might have to use a tripod when you're taking the pictures. Here's a picture at 70mm, and again zoomed in at 300mm. Another shot at 70mm, and here's one zoomed in at 300mm. Now, when I am comparing this lens with the standard 70-300 Canon lens, I can't really detect any difference in image quality. Both lenses are producing sharp and clear pictures, and they're both slightly softer in focus at the maximum focal length at 300mm. You can see full versions of these photos if you go to my website. So I thought I'd point out a couple of alternative lenses if you're interested in buying a 70-300mm lens. Firstly, here is the diffractive optics lens that I've been talking about. Next to it we have Canon's standard 70-300mm lens. As you can see, it's quite a lot bigger than the DO version. Typically the DO version is about 2/3 the size of the standard lens. Lastly, we have the Sigma 70-300mm lens here. So as I said, the diffractive optics version is a lot smaller. It's going to fit in your kit bag a lot easier. It'd be great as a travelling lens. It is a lot heavier though. It's at least 100 grams heavier than the Canon standard 70-300mm. But both the Canons here have got image stabilization, which is something that the Sigma lens doesn't have. Image stabilization is great. I use it all the time. It's a very valuable function. The Sigma lens here, however, has got a macro mode. You can take pictures very close with this lens, which means it's more versatile. The two Canon lenses here don't have a macro mode, and the closest you can focus in on with these lenses is about 1.4 meters away. Now, in terms of price, the DO lens is definitely the most expensive lens to purchase. Typically brand new, the 70-300 DO lens will cost between £950 and £1,100. So as you can see, it is quite an expensive lens. Now alternatively, the Canon standard 70-300 is a lot cheaper, and you could buy one of these lenses for between £380 and £430. Lastly, the Sigma here is the cheapest of the three, and brand new that would only cost about £150. Now if you wanted to save money, you could always go for a refurbished or second-hand lens. And refurbished or second-hand, this lens, the DO lens here, would cost between £480 and £650. So you can save quite a lot of money if you went for a refurbished lens, for example. The Canon second-hand or refurbished would cost within the range of £280 and £380. And the Sigma second-hand or refurbished would cost probably around about £60. So that's the Canon EF 70-300mm diffractive optics telephoto lens. It's a good lens. It takes pretty sharp pictures. They are slightly softer in focus at 300mm, but they are pretty sharp. No chromatic aberration either. It's got the image stabilization, which is a great feature to have on a lens. It's very valuable. And obviously the main reason for buying this lens is that it's going to be a lot smaller than the alternatives. It is about 2/3 the size of the standard Canon 70-300mm, which means it's going to fit in your kit bag a lot easier, as I said. I think it would be a great travelling lens, so if you're on holiday and you want to take a camera with a small lens with you, this would be ideal. Also, it's going to be less conspicuous than a a big telephoto lens, so there's less chances of it drawing the attention of somebody who wanted to steal it, for example. It is more expensive. I mean, it's twice the price of a standard lens, standard 70-300mm lens. So would you necessarily want to spend the money and buy this? I think typically it depends upon what your reasons for buying it are. Typically, for me personally, I would probably just stick with the cheaper 70-300 because it's also got the image stabilization and the image quality is very comparable to this lens. But if I was traveling and I wanted a smaller lens, I would definitely think about getting this one. The last thing I'd say though is that the image quality with this lens is not going to be up to the quality of pictures you could take with an L lens, so it's not going to be quite as good. So that's the review of the Canon 70-300 diffractive optics lens. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like to check out some more reviews, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is SLR Lens. Thanks.